Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shatterproof Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Reeb, and today we have an exceptional guest joining us, Shelby Long. Shelby, the serial entrepreneur, Business Dynamics founder, Cadence Speaker Academy founder, and president of the Strategic Advisory Board. She's also a tenured professor of business communication and a 4-time international bestselling author. She specializes in helping visionaries transform their ideas into income. We're all interested in that. I can't wait to dive into this with Shelby. Shelby, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Scott. You say all those things, and then I remember that I am a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, you do a lot. You and I, we met at Excel about a month ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And all the stuff you do is very intriguing, and you have your hands in a lot of things, and they all work together. They're not like different. You're not making cakes and then doing business coaching. It all kind of works together, but you seem to have a fun life, and you're helping people. So I want to tell people about your story and what you're doing so that you can possibly help them. So how did you get here? I mean, you're a college professor, tenured. So that seems like a pretty good gig. How did you get into entrepreneurialism?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's a story there for sure. I love teaching, and I got into teaching and being a college professor because I love being in front of an audience. I love speaking, and I love also the interaction and the engagement, and I love a stage. And I know that might be kind of odd for some people, but I just love that. And where that started with me, I was an education undergrad, so I've always wanted to be a teacher. But then after I got out, wasn't quite ready to teach, and so I went and I worked at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, and I was their debate coach for 3 years. And college debate was my background. I did college debate when I was in college, and then I loved it, and that took me around the country, and I had the opportunity to meet a lot of different people. I was involved with a lot of different things all around that debate, and I wanted to continue that. So I did that at the college level, and then I wanted to continue that for my career, and so that inspired me to get into teaching and running a debate program. So I did that for quite some time, but then I kind of got this teaching business communication and teaching argumentation and persuasion, and I really loved it, but I felt there was a limit to it. And not that it was limited in the possibilities of what I could do in the classroom, but that it was limited in where I was. And I'm teaching business communication, but then also working with some other businesses and discovering that I really liked that because you could help provide them solutions and then find the immediate result there rather than teaching it in the classroom. There was you could see the transformation, and I like that more. So that kind of intrigued me to start my own business. And so I started a few side hustles, and then I decided to make the step away from teaching entirely, but now I'm teaching in a different space. So it's a different space, and it's a different impact, really. So communication is key to any business, whether you bake cakes, or whether you are a lawyer, or whether you are in a nonprofit. You need to be able to communicate, and the better that our messages are, the better money that you can make, and the more people you connect with, and it's just fundamental to business. So that's kind of how, I don't know, that's where it all started. I was inspired to get out of the teaching space.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, you're still teaching, but now you're teaching an audience that's actually applying what you're teaching them immediately instead of eventually. And you get immediate feedback and see, their metrics change right after you teach them. So I can see why that would be intriguing. Not that it's not fulfilling to help young 20-somethings fill their heads of mush with business communication stuff. I think there's part of that I would probably enjoy as well. But actually being able to do it where they're actually applying it in business and seeing, that stuff that I was saying over here, the theory, it does work.
Yep.
So I can see where that would be fun. So like, who do you work with?
Primarily, I work with people in the thought leadership space, which want to develop and grow businesses around their ideas. And
Yeah.
that can be multiple different things. I've worked with people in the fitness industry. I've worked with people in the accounting industry. I've worked with people in the speaking industry, because I do quite a few different things, but all of it is around what kind of impact you want to make and creating a business around the impact that you want to make. Because it's not just about writing a book or giving a speech, it's creating the whole package around that. So that's why I have the business development side of it and the speaking side of it and the publishing arm of it, that there's a greater impact that you can make. And what I do in my own business is I help. It started where I kind of started with the business side of it, is that I found that my fundamental skill was taking a whole lot of information and putting it into digestible pieces so you can teach other people your craft. And that's what I did in debate. And that's what I did in lesson planning all the time.
Yeah.
And I find that many experts have a hard time doing that. And so I help them do that and produce their lesson plans, their digital programs, their signature programs. And then I just kind of, that's a foundational piece of what I do. But then there's a whole influence building space around that includes speaking and writing and being in media, those types of things. So
you use the term thought leader.
Yeah.
What is your definition of a thought leader?
Someone that wants to create an impact. So it's kind of about footprint. Like, it's what kind of footprint do you want to leave? And if you want people to follow that idea, it's really starting a conversation about things. Because I think the very much a joy in this world is that we have so many different perspectives and worldviews and approaches to things. And it's having a conversation about that. And as a thought leader, I think it's more about inviting a conversation and leading a transformation. And it's not about one approach. It's about how do you take all of those different approaches and get into, you're a lawyer, so you probably have similar approaches. Yes, there's a pro and the con, but it's just fun to create solutions, and there's a lot of creativity and opportunity in that space. And I think that
go ahead.
It's a fun place to be. So
So give me an example of a thought leader.
I have worked with. I think I'm a thought leader. I think that I'm a thought leader in a space that I help inspire people to take their foundational genius and monetize it.
Yep.
I may not be the most influential thought leader, as far as I don't have the following that like a Tony Robbins does, or I don't have that, but
not yet.
But I will eventually. It just takes some time to get there, and it takes money to get there. It takes capital to get there, and it takes following to get there. And you could do it organically, or you can do it by paying money for it. So it just takes time. So there's a
kind of combination.
It's a combination of things. I think thought leaders can also be, in the business consulting space, there's a lot of people that are thought leaders, that are writing books, that are hosting podcasts, that are trying to get people to have those conversations. I think it's more so, I think we can find them a lot in the coaching and consulting community, but I think you can even find thought leaders in the political world. You can find thought leaders that are in the science community. There are lots of different thought leaders that we have that are trying to have conversations. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the media all the time, but the people that are having that type of influence and having those conversations, I think are
because the thought may not, the idea isn't, I have this thought that I think is important and I want to get it into the media to be famous. It's, I have a thought that I think is important and needs to be heard. Like, I think that the billable hour is dead and everyone just doesn't know it yet. And that the lawyers need to be changing their models to subscriptions like I do, flat fee and value-based billing, so that they can be on the same side as their clients. But most lawyers don't agree with me on that. And so that's a thought that I've been pushing now for, gosh, we're 15 years. And I'm a 28-year overnight success. But it's but I'm not famous because of it. It's just that's what I talk about. And so I would consider myself to be a thought leader as well.
Absolutely.
And I love your book title. I see your genius, transform your idea into income. So you're taking that, hey, I'm a thought leader. I've got a valuable thought, or I have a valuable maybe skill set. And how do I transform that into something that might actually get attention and traction and pay my bills?
Right. It's the monetization piece of it is what I think we don't think about. So I just had a conversation on my own podcast with this woman who she has a wellness studio, but then she's also launching this podcast. We're talking about the development of the two different things, but then it really falls under the same umbrella of conflict resolution, which is something that she's trained in. It's something she has her master's degree in, but it's not something she does. Like, she doesn't do conflict resolution. She runs a yoga studio, and she has a parenting podcast that she's coming out with. But the foundations of it are conflict resolution, and they are communication, because that's her genius. That's her way of seeing the world and approaching the world. And I think with the book and the title, I think as entrepreneurs, it takes a while to understand what we have to offer. And sometimes we don't see it because we're in it. And, I think with me at the college for a long time, I love teaching. I could be in a classroom. That's a happy place for me to be, but it's also a very comfortable place for me to be. And I wasn't probably being challenged, or I don't think I was being challenged in the right way until I stepped into entrepreneurship. And then my genius, which is communicating and dissecting information and teaching people how to be teachers and teaching people how to be influencers and paying attention to your audience. That's really where the gift is. And I think with you too, you have such an interesting and out of the norm view of how the world of lawyers work. And I think it's something that's niche and something that's unique and something that could influence your industry down the road. And it's something that's different, or maybe it already has started to influence your industry. So
I think it may have some, and it's based on the underlying philosophy that you have to be proactive with your business and your life. You can't just let life happen to you. So you've got to seek out coaches to help you take your idea and transform it into income. It's not going to just transform itself. No one really cares about your story. You've got to package it correctly. You have to have a back end offer. And if you don't have all that stuff, you're just going to get frustrated and be poor and unknown. But if you get the right people helping you and you're proactive about that, then things happen. If you're proactive on the legal side of your life and business, then less bad things happen. And when something bad happens, you're more prepared for it and can deal with it better. That's all part of the Shatterproof life. And so I totally get what you're saying. What inspired you to write this book, I See Your Genius?
I was inspired to tell my story. And I do talk about my story of entrepreneurship because I think that's an important path. But I also compare that to the story that happened when I was 17 years old, and I was in a car accident, and I was in a coma for 16 days, and I had to relearn everything, how to write, how to swallow, how to walk, all in the summer before my senior year of high school. And it was a life-changing event. The funny thing is that I don't remember it because I was in a coma and had a traumatic brain injury. But I would tell people the story, and they're like, you should talk about that. You should tell how you recovered. And I don't really think I ever thought about how I recovered until I took that journey of entrepreneurship, which was facing your fears and doing things that were out of the ordinary and pushing yourself to be who you didn't think you could be. And I did that kind of unintentionally in the recovery from my traumatic brain injury. Just to give a little bit more context to that, my wreck was at the end of my senior year of high school. I was college bound, 4.0 student. I was third place in state debate that year. I had planned to go to, I was just elected to go to girls state. Like I was a good student.
Yeah.
And there was no question that I was going to go to college. And my parents were the same way. They were very much encouraging me to go to college and to go do all the things that I wanted to do. And then the wreck happened at the end of my junior year of high school. And then when I went back to school, very, very fortunately, the beginning of my senior year, there was no question in my mind that I was going to go to college, that I was going to take the ACTs and the SATs, that I didn't know I was going to be on the college debate team yet, but there was no question in my mind that I was going to do that, because that's what I had in my mind before I got in the car wreck. And then I just kind of got back into everything that I did before. My processing was a little slower. I could tell that, but I just did it. And my senior year was a blur. And then after I still graduated salutatorian. I still participated on the debate team. I was in youth legislature that year. I went to state. After I did that, I went to college the following year on the debate team. And I really do feel, and I wrote about this in the book, that I do feel that being in a place, and I was surrounded by such talent, and I was a talent, but I wasn't nearly the talent that I was surrounded by. We ended up being national champions my senior year. Wow. And it was such a gift to be a part of that. But I felt that's where I should be, and be around people that are better than you, that are doing the things that you want to do, so you can emulate that and find your own path. That was what I feel, and that very unscientifically, I feel that was a really important part of my recovery. Yeah. And I really do think that compares to my entrepreneur journey too, is that I started my side hustle, but when I wanted to take it to the next level, I had to be in communities and be around people that were doing the things that I wanted to do. So I paid for the coaching. I put more time in my content production, and then now I've got a couple of businesses, and I love where I'm at and I love where I'm going. So, but it wouldn't happen unless I would have taken that step. So that's kind of why I wrote the book, was to tell that story.
Hey there, it's Scott Reed, cutting in for a quick moment. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding value in our discussions, you're going to love the Access Plan. It's designed for entrepreneurs like you, offering unlimited legal advice without the worry of high hourly fees. With the Access Plan, you can get the legal support you need at a flat monthly rate, so you can focus on growing your business with confidence. Head over to reblaw.com/access to learn more, and join Access now and get busy shadowproofing your business. Now let's get back to our amazing guest.
Tell that story.
So let's dive in a little more to the book then. So how do you identify your genius, or see your genius? Is there a process for that? How does that work?
There is. And I think it starts with your story. And I think I believe it starts with your story and your brand. And you can have stories. You can have our lives, or I'm 47, so I've had quite a few stories in my life, but there's always something that emerges in them. And I think what you always gravitate to, your strength, what you love to do, what you're passionate about, that's where your genius is in there somewhere. And I have this passion to communicate and to influence others and to be on stage. And that is a part of my business, that I have a business around that. Yep. But that's a part of the bigger impact that I want to make. And so I can help people be speakers and find paid stages and what have you. So that's a piece of it. But I've always gravitated towards that. And I didn't have that in my business for a long time. And then I've added it, and it's just really become full circle of what is your genius, or what I discovered as my genius. And as a potential entrepreneur that might be stuck in their corporate job and want to do something else and want to be more fulfilled in their life, you have the ability to do that. Anybody can be an entrepreneur, but there are certain things that you need to, you've got to be okay with uncertainty. You've got to be okay to face your fears. You've got to push yourself and challenge yourself. Maybe not everybody can be an entrepreneur, but it takes really getting out of your comfort zone to do that. And I feel that your genius is there. It's how you understand the world. It's how you solve problems. And that key is something that someone else can use to help solve a problem in their business or their life.
Yeah. And so I think there's people that haven't identified their genius for sure. Yeah. And then there's people that have, but they don't know how to make any money with it.
Yeah.
And so how do you help them?
I help them. There's the whole process of the brand. What kind of business do you want? Because you, as a thought leader, you can do many different things to make money, whether it's running webinars or digital programs or live programs, or you want to do retreats, or you want to be a paid speaker. There are lots of different ways you can do that. It just depends on, you've got to pick what transformation you're selling, because people will buy transformation. If you're helping me lose 20 pounds, that's a goal that I might have in my life. And if I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to do this certain exercise to do it, I'm going to go to that person to do that.
Yep.
If I want to double my income or double my billable hours or my revenue, then I'm going to seek a business coach that will help lead to that solution.
Yeah.
So really the money and the monetization question is in the transformation that you provide. And if you can provide a transformation that helps a business save time or money, you can monetize it.
Okay, I like that.
Because you reduce the time, you're helping a business save time or money. You help a person find more time in their life, so they can spend time with their family and do what they love to do. That has value. People pay for that.
Okay, so you're the business communications expert. So give us some tips on how to use business communication to improve our corporate culture or our companies.
Love the culture question. Culture, the organizational communication was my favorite class to teach, and I would still teach it today if I had the chance. I love it because it has everything to do with small group communication and interpersonal communication and getting to know each other. And it's not necessarily, I talk about brand for entrepreneurs and how important that is to build an emotional connection with your audience. And that has everything to do with providing that trust. So when you have the sales conversations, it's easier. But I think the same is true in corporate America. And I think the same is true in a business culture. And it's having particularly in this AI flooded and technical communication and emails and AI generated things, I think we lose the personal touch to things. And I think that's where a lot of our connection to culture is. But we also have to think about how culture is different in every organization. It's not a rubber stamp of here's my mission and vision. It's how that mission and vision is executed in your corporation. And so I think it takes, as a leader, I've got to talk to my employees to kind of see where the issues are and what we need to resolve or where the tensions are so I can pay attention to that. And I think there's a level of executive responsibility to be able to have those grassroots conversations and to do some of that problem solving just within your own organization can make a big difference in your culture. So there are many different ways to go about that, but it's not just teaching emotional intelligence. It's not just teaching interpersonal communication. It's finding where your tensions are and how you can resolve that. And often it's miscommunication and misdirection.
Okay. Well, if someone wanted to work with you, what would be the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn and Facebook. So Shelby Jo Long is where you can find me on both of those spaces. I also have a website, shelbyjolong.com. Also in the Strategic Advisor Board, I'm president of that strategy group, and strategicadvisorboard.com is there. You can contact me through there. I have a podcast called the Genius Entrepreneur Podcast, which I'm excited to have you on eventually.
Yeah, we'll get on there.
When your life slows down a little bit. And then we will, it's podcasts. It's also active on Spotify, so you can find me there. Lots of places to contact me, but I'm very active on social media, and I'm happy to respond there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're kind of rounding out the year here on the show. Season 1, you'll actually be your episode 51. So, yeah. So what sort of things, should small business owners be focusing on as they wrap up a year?
I think that as they wrap up the year is an important time that we think about reconnecting with people around us, whether that's your clients, your supporters, your business partners, making sure that connection is as a communication principle, it's a good thing to just keep that involvement. The holidays are a great time for family, but it's also giving people the space and the gratitude and approaching things with gratitude that I think is really important. As you enter the new year, doesn't mean that approaching things with gratitude and thanking people does not mean we shouldn't be thinking about launching something in 2025.
Yeah.
But I think we have to do both of those things. There's the reflection, but then there's also what am I going to do in 2025? The goal, I've had a conversation about goal setting, and goal setting is great, but we have to remember that goals are malleable too. And so it's that you may achieve your goal or not achieve your goal, but you learn a lot of things along the way, and making those pivots is so important. My business partner in the Strategic Advisor Board talks about those micro pivots that we need to make in our business to be able to adapt to the external environment, but also adapt to the internal environment too, because we can have our goals, but we might need to do lots of different things to get there.
I think sometimes we set the wrong goals. What seemed like what in November seemed like the right goal for next year, when you get to March and April, you may go, that was the wrong target. We're shooting for the totally wrong thing. We need to recalibrate and set a new goal. I think people can get really locked into what they decided they were going to do in November and December, and we're going to do that no matter what. Be flexible, be malleable, especially in small businesses, because I love goal setting, and you should be doing that. But be flexible and understand that maybe we set the wrong goal or target, and we need to recalibrate before the year's over, because small changes, small hinges swing big doors. And so sometimes if you're so driven, and a lot of us are, like, we've set the goal, so we're going to achieve it no matter what. The no matter what may cost you. So make sure that you're setting the right goals and make changes as you go through the year, and get feedback from your team. And if you don't have a team, hire a coach, because you need to be getting feedback from someone that has that different perspective. Let me ask you a few quick questions. What's your favorite book and that the listeners should read?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. I really liked the first half of Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like the second half, but I like the first half because it's very proactive as far as you've got to, in business and in life, developing habits and rituals is a way that we create consistency, and it's a way that we can improve. And the goal setting, I think, is important too, but we have to be able to be malleable and move and shake a little bit. I liked that book a lot. That's probably made the biggest impact on me. You know what book I read this year, which is not a business book, but it really made me think about our time here and the impact we want to make, was The Measure. I don't know if you've heard of it, but everybody in the world got this box, and you had a string in it. And if it was a short string, that meant that your life was going to be short. And if it was a long string, that meant you were going to have a long life. And it was very much about quality of life. And, if if you have a short life, what kind of impact are you going to make?
Yeah.
Or if you have a long life, that, just what kind of impact you're going to make. Just really made me think, not a business book, but it made me think about my business and what kind of impact I want to make. And I might not have many years on this earth, but I'm sure as heck going to make sure they're good ones.
Oh, I love it. What's a habit that keeps you focused and productive?
Exercise, for one, and taking time for me. And those are not mutually exclusive. They could be together. But I think that's an important habit to develop into, is do something that recharges you, whether it's taking a walk with your dog or going to the gym and lifting some weights or walking with a friend, whatever that is. You've got to recharge, because it's hard to go all in, and it keeps you fresh, keeps you focused. So I think that's something that's important to develop in your habits. And I can tell when I take a few days off and, sit in the hot springs and don't exercise like I should. I can tell that. So, but that's okay, because you need to do that too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've received as a business owner?
Go all in.
Ooh. Okay.
And I think that looks many different ways. In full disclosure, been working at the college for 18 years, and I taught half-time the past 3 years, and because I was building my businesses, and hindsight's 2020, but I wonder what my business would be if I had gone all in the beginning, rather than hold on to something that I wasn't entirely passionate about. But I do believe there's some worth in that. But there's also worth in the strategy behind that. I mean, there was a strategy for me holding on to it, whether it's health insurance or something comfortable that I enjoyed, whatever that was. And I have a tremendous support system around me too, with my husband and family. But it's going all in is something that you operate differently when that's what you got to do.
It's very difficult to ride two horses.
100%.
I've seen some gifted people that can do it, but that's generally called trick riding, and so most of us can't do that. So it's like go all in as soon as you can, because one of those things is going to suffer, and that's not really fair to either of them. So figure out what your direction is, how you're being called, and follow it hard. And what Xavier would say, persistent consistency towards that one common goal will get you where you're going. Well, this has been a fun conversation. I enjoyed getting to know you in Colorado, and look forward to many more conversations down the road. And with you and you. One thing we didn't really talk about, but could have, is the importance of being around the right people. And I got to meet a lot of the people that you're spending time with. And so, if you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, then Shelby Long is an incredible person, because she hangs out with some pretty great people.
Well, thank you. Yes, there's many more conversations to be had.
Yeah. Well, as we close, I want to offer you a blessing. I want to commit to the Lord whatever you do, and I pray that He would establish your plans, and that your endeavors would prosper and impact many, many lives, because I love what you're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this as much as I have and gotten the value like I have, please like and share this. And until next week, stay shatterproof.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. While I'm your host, Scott Reeb, I'm a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer, and this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed by my guests are their own and not mine, and they may not even reflect the opinion of the Shatterproof Entrepreneur podcast. So we strive to provide valuable and accurate content, but we make no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information to your particular situation, and won't be liable for any errors or omissions for the application of them. Always consult a professional or in the respective area that we've discussed before making any personal or business decisions.